Welcome everybody to how to use dispensary data to drive new sales. Stay ahead of the competition and scale your marketing strategy. Today we'll be talking about what you need to do to track and how, the best ways to use your new data to determine what your customers are looking for, and how to use data-driven insights to reach more customers quickly. My name is Guillermo Bravo. I'm the CEO and founder of Foot Traffic. My passion is spearheading strategies to drive advertising campaigns in the cannabis space for both brands and dispensaries. And here at Foot Traffic, we've helped 400 dispensaries with their advertising, helping them increase their revenue and reach more customers. Jocelyn?
What's happening, everyone? Awesome to be here. I'm Jocelyn. I'm dialing in from beautiful Oakland right now. I've been a part of the cannabis industry for 3 years with Headset the entire time, having the time of my life. I'm our director of industry relations here. And really what that means is, I'm working across North America. I'm working with retailers and brands, and I'm really helping educate people on the different uses of data, what we're building at Headset. And then in my personal life, I'm watching my partner build a concentrate company in California that he's been working on for 6 years. And so I'm just pretty entrenched in the community. I'm happy to be sharing everything that I've been learning from Headset's end. And also in my past background prior to cannabis, I came from the ad tech world. So a lot of what we're talking about today is stuff that I was working on with app developers at the start of the whole app evolution. And so I'm happy to kind of share some of those learnings and things we can incorporate in our cannabis world, just to be a little bit more efficient with our advertising spend. So happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Jocelyn. Appreciate it. All right, well, let's kick it off. So running a dispensary means you're often juggling numerous responsibilities and priorities. While you want to create a welcoming environment and nurture current customer relationships, you also want to expand your customer base and acquire new customers. To maintain a healthy operation, dispensaries must manage both of these things simultaneously. Most businesses are good at handling the first task, but the second one tends to be more of a challenge. Can you give us some insight into the customer acquisition process and why data matters?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to keep this very simple. It looks like we've got 11 attendees on. So I'm not sure what kind of everyone's background is and area of expertise. I'm assuming there's a lot of inventory or marketing managers on this call. I'm going to keep things kind of as simple as possible. So really, when we're thinking about customer acquisition and why does this matter? I mean, listen, at the end of the day, customers are vital to your business, right? And when you're thinking about customer acquisition and you're thinking about growing your revenue, there's really only 2 ways that you can do this. You can either get more customers in your store, or you can get them to buy more things. Like, these are the only 2 real tactics, right, to increasing our revenue. And retail marketing right now in cannabis, this is a huge challenge, right? We're not yet like more traditional industries where we have endless options for us that traditional CPG or retail companies are going to have, right? We're limited in our advertising campaigns and options there. We're limited, we have growing technologies. So all of this is going to make it a lot harder for you just right out of the gate. But because of these difficulties, this is why it's really critical to avoid wasting energy by sending ineffective marketing campaigns to your customers that really aren't going to be paying attention or are going to opt out of future messaging. So what we want to think about is, instead of kind of doing this like blind mass marketing, we really want to think about how are we going to build smarter, more targeted campaigns And what we can do that by is by tracking our customers' purchasing patterns. And we can then group them into different segments that are really going to allow you to understand how often those different groups are purchasing, what they like to purchase, how many times they're coming into your store. There's a bevy of different data points and technologies that we're going to get into in further questions that are really going to help you understand kind of how to do this segmentation. But essentially the main thing that you should be taking away here about, why is this customer acquisition process so important? It's essentially just making sure that you're being efficient with your dollars. Everyone in the cannabis industry is working on very small margins. So this is even more reason that we have to think critically about where that money is going. Okay, so we included the slide because, so I mentioned like this is a complex and kind of growing area for us in cannabis. And so this is just a quick snapshot. I'm sure a lot of you are already using a lot of these technologies, but if we just think about our industry, right, we've been emerging over the last, like, I'll just say 6 years. I'm based in California. I live in Bay Area, so I'm seeing a lot of the technology evolve here. So as a retailer, you need a bevy of different technologies, right? You've got to have a point of sale system, maybe an ERP solution, an accounting software, a live menu software, a marketplace software like LeafLink, the tech stack, which we refer to in more traditional ad tech industries. This has been evolving within the cannabis industry over the last several years as we're seeing more investment come in, more people from different industries come in and kind of help evolve the space. So this is all getting really complicated, and we're starting to see this development of a full tech stack. And so now the challenge for retailers, it's just so interesting to watch this evolution over the last 3 years, because over the last year in particular, now because there are so many different data solutions out there, it can be really easy for there to kind of be a data paralysis. It's like you're collecting all this data and it's like, okay, well, what do I do with this? How do I make sense of all of this data? And so now in the industry, we're at a point where we need to start creating unified solutions that are pulling in all of these different data sets and helping you make sense of it, which ultimately is coming back to a couple different things. You need to understand your data for inventory management so you can be efficient there. And then you need all these different data sources to be able to understand who your customer is so that you can send them that more effective messaging. So ultimately, these solutions are really going to help you do that. And I just thought this was an important slide to see how many different tech solutions there are available today to really help you answer these questions.
Wonderful. And that certainly makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of information out there, and it's not always easy to integrate this into an actionable format. So especially when creating marketing campaigns to reach new customers.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of data should dispensaries be paying attention to on a weekly or a monthly basis?
Okay, so I'm going to obviously give this from Headset's perspective, which just so everyone is aware of what we do, because I think this is obviously very important. So you understand my perspective of where I'm coming from when I'm saying what kind of data should you be looking at weekly or daily. So at Headset, what we're doing is we're providing a piece of software that a retailer uses, that it plugs into your point of sale system, ingests all of that data, and it's turning it into more actionable reports and visualizations that as a retailer you can use essentially for inventory management and understanding your customer. If you think back, when I mentioned that like 6 years ago, as we started to see more technology kind of evolve, the point of sale systems all have reporting, right? So oftentimes we'll see an inventory management report that's going to tell you how much product should you reorder. And this is an example of type of data you should be looking at on a weekly or monthly basis. So as a retailer, you don't want your inventory sitting in the back stock, right? We're all very limited in our capital. So the last thing we want to do is have capital in your back room. So we want to make sure that your inventory is moving. You need to know how much product should you order based off of current demand. And then you also want to know what product or what inventory is just stale and it's really not doing anything for you. It's not moving off your shelves and you want to get that moving. So when we're thinking about what data we want to be looking at on a regular basis, it's first going to be that inventory data. So you really want to be looking at how much product should you be ordering so that, again, it's not sitting in your back stock room. The other thing that we really want to be looking at is our customer data, especially if you're going to be running any advertising campaigns. So you really want to be thinking about, who are my customers? Where are they finding me from? How many are coming from Leafly versus Weed Maps, etc.? How many trips are they making to my store? What do they like to purchase? All of that type of data. We have a bevy of different solutions in the industry now that are available for you to help you track and understand that data. So we want to be looking at that on a consistent basis so that, again, ultimately, the goal here is to make sure that all of that inventory is moving and that you have happy customers that are enjoying those particular products and that you're making sure your shelves are stocked with those products. So to summarize, really simple, inventory data. This is something that you're going to want to look at on a more consistent basis. When we're talking about your customer data, that's all going to be dependent on how often you're running any type of marketing campaign, a vendor day. There's a lot that you can be tracking through your vendor days and how they're performing. Across all markets, we're seeing, this is a very tough industry to be a part of. We've had a lot of challenges over the last year. And so keeping an eye on your brands that you're, having solid partnerships with and making sure that you're regularly getting that product ordered from those brands, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to that data too. So what brands are performing well for you? I'm going to bucket into the inventory piece.
Wonderful. And to talk about that further, it's how can dispensaries maximize this data to get them the most return from any of their advertising campaigns? And I'll talk about this a little bit more. So I want to take this a step further. I think the natural question is asked here, and we know that CRMs are very powerful tools for gathering demographic information. Many dispensaries stop short when doing their data analysis there. They check demographics, top selling brands, and maybe top product category purchases, and that's pretty much it. If you want to build a solid marketing strategy, you also need to look at consumer reports for your region to gain further insight into how to build out targeted marketing campaigns to re-engage a customer base that may be in decline, or even expand your customer targeting to include a demographic that is interested in a specific product category. So, how can dispensaries maximize this data to get the most return on their advertising campaigns? For one, your data can help you create better customer avatars or personas. So once you have your target audience fleshed out and can visualize who it is you want to reach, then you can use that information to tailor your campaigns. Let's say that your data shows the majority of your customers are millennials who tend to buy flower and vapes and occasionally purchase some edibles. Knowing this information, you can identify the advertising channel that is most likely to reach that demographic. In this instance, let's say the Media Gel programmatic advertising network is the best way to get your ads in front of your millennials. And once you selected your advertising channel, you can start building out new campaigns by choosing imagery that will attract your target audience, creating copy that makes them stop scrolling and to take notice in your ad, and setting up ad parameters that make it more likely that your target audience will see your ads. So basically, by using the data to tailor your campaigns, you're going to increase your chances of reaching the right people and get a better response. And understanding who your customers are and what they're into will ultimately help you understand how to reach them better and what type of deals will get them excited to buy from you. So this is all important in getting the best return on investment.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, Guillermo, again, going back to the inventory piece, and the reason I'm really focusing on this inventory piece is because, listen, most of the feedback that I hear from retailers, it's really making sure that you're hitting margins, right? And one of the challenges that we have as an industry is that this is just so new for everyone. We're seeing new consumers come into the market every day, right? Like we're seeing moms start to consume in different ways. We're seeing shifts with how millennials are starting to consume with older demographics, preferring flower. We're seeing all of this shift in real time because this is just changing so quickly in our industry. And so when I'm mentioning the inventory piece and making sure that we're hitting margins, what we can also think about when we're doing advertising campaigns is if you have a set of products that are about to expire that aren't selling well, you can run advertising campaigns for that inventory. So let's say you've got a box of patches, and some, transdermal patches, or that you have a tincture that is just, people don't quite understand that product. It's not selling super well in your store. Well, you can check those inventory levels in your point of sale system through a platform like Headset, and you see like, okay, this tincture not moving well. It's going to be expiring in 30 days. I better get this moving. The next thing you want to think about is, okay, who likes to buy tinctures? All right, we know women like to buy tinctures. We know, millennial women like to buy tinctures and they're using it for more health and wellness reasons. Okay, so let's take this knowledge, let's reflect that in our creative units, and then let's go get that product in our back stock moving. And let's, on top of this advertising, let's also offer a discount. This all seems very basic. And when I'm saying this, I'm like, gosh, it just seems so basic. I'm fear I'm not telling everyone anything they don't already know. But the challenge is that because we have so many disparate data sources giving us this information, and oftentimes just a lack of time and resources to really think strategically, when we spend time focusing on this and really looking into the details here, it's going to ultimately save you money, right? Because ultimately you're going to get that product moving, which is really the goal here. I see a lot of retailers that unfortunately the product will go out of stock and then they're just losing or out of expiration. And then that product, they can't make money on it. So really just not thinking about advertising as a form of just kind of communicating with your customer, but also really taking advantage of the opportunities to advertise on products you need to get moving because that isn't selling well in your store, it's sitting in your back room.
No, those are wonderful points. And, to add on to that and just thinking of that specific example that you use in tinctures, another campaign that we have ran in the past is, with tinctures, let's say the demographic is millennial women, we're going to pair that or bundle it with, a vape pen or another product that same demographic is using, and just say like, hey, for $7.10, you're going to get this concentrate, you're going to get this other product, and we're going to throw in a discounted tincture so that you can get that inventory, out of the store and get that into the customer's hands. So, just being really creative with this is, what's the best way to engage your existing customers and provide value, and whether it's an in-store vendor day, really educating customers, getting blog posts out there to really explain the tincture products, and really just providing resources so that they can make a better decision to buy product. It's all part of being a better dispensary and just adding value. So
yeah, exactly. And if I could just add on one more thing here, this isn't as hard to do as you would think, because again, the technology to help you track this and give you the answers, it's already there. I mean, this is the point of what Headset is doing with our retail software, right? We literally have reports that you can go in and you can see, okay, this demographic group likes to purchase tinctures, but we also see that this particular group has a high propensity of purchasing pre-rolls along with those tinctures. So what we then know is, okay, well, when we're offering this discount or when we're wanting to do a bundled offer, we now already know what that demographic group likes to purchase along with that particular product. All of these insights are available to us as an industry right now. It's really about just getting yourself comfortable with using data and technology. And a lot of this is just so new for us as an industry that's why what I hope that everyone gets from this is more so like, these are basic tactics that we're talking about, but you're really going to need to spend time understanding the technologies, understanding the reports that are going to help you pull this data and make sense of all of it. And again, just to stress, like the technologies are here. There's a bevy of companies that are listed in that slide prior that are essentially providing these types of insights that you can then take to foot traffic and say, hey, here's what we're seeing. We're seeing this customer demographic group is visiting our store X number of times. They like to purchase pre-rolls. They also like to purchase edibles. These are the brands they like to purchase. All of this is available to us now. It's very exciting to watch all of this evolve in our industry. And now it's just about taking the time to educate ourselves on how to take in this information and make sense of it.
Exactly. And yeah, take that information and digest it and then put it into action. And that's what we'll cover here is, how can you give us some examples of data that are most helpful for dispensaries when building out, retargeting campaigns to customers who've already know about their brand or have visited their website?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So in general, with retargeting campaigns, you're wanting to understand as much as possible about your specific customers and their purchasing habits, right? Because you're going to go retarget to those customers.
Yep.
So let's think about retargeting to our most valuable customers for a moment, because this is something that's really impactful. This is most new for us as an industry and retailers that I'm talking to. And so when we're thinking about who our most valuable customers are, there's a methodology that traditional retailers use, and this is called an RFM segmentation. And what this is a multifaceted model that's really helping you group your customers into different segments based on a scoring criteria. And what RFM means, it's about recency, frequency, and monetary value. So recency, what this is doing is this is a measure of looking and scoring your customers about how long it has been since that customer last made a trip to your store. All right. So we want to understand, okay, I'm going to give Willie Nelson as an example. This is the customer we're going to follow through in this example. So we say, hey, we see in the data, Willie Nelson made a purchase 6 days ago. This is an example of recency. Now, the next methodology within this RFM model is about frequency. And what frequency is saying is this is a measure of how often that customer comes into purchase. So for example, Willie Nelson, we can see in the data, he purchases every 15 days on average, and that's over a 365-day period. Okay, so we want to know his frequency. Then the next part of this model is about monetary value. So we want to know, how much is that particular customer spending over a given period of time. So for example, Willie Nelson, he spent $565 over the previous 365 days. So when we're blending these three measures together and we're giving a score to each customer, we can then create a matrix and we can group customers into these different segments. And these different segments are then going to be used for your marketing campaigns that are going to be tailored to their behaviors. So once we've identified these different groups, this is where the real fun happens. And this is where I see some dispensaries really use this data and they're passing it on to companies like Springbig, doing all the text messaging. And what they're doing is they're then saying, all right, I'm going to send you a list of phone numbers. And these are my customers that are my loyalists. These are my customers that are coming in to visit my store 15 times over the last, 365-day period. They're spending a lot of money. These are the customers that, number one, I want to send them more targeted and relevant messages. So I'm seeing some dispensaries do some pretty cool things, like pulling that list of, because you'll see the names, you're going to see the phone numbers. So you're going to pull this list of loyalists, and I'm seeing some dispensaries, they have like a concierge where they have people just calling down that list and they're saying, hey, you're one of our top 10 most highest spending customers in the store. We are so appreciative of you. We'd love to have you come down and we're going to give you a private tour of the store. We've got some exclusive products that are going to be launching, and we want to give you first access to those. We want you to meet the team. We're going to give you a discount, but they're doing this hand holding where it's a really personalized experience. And this is working really well because what they're seeing is that the average basket size, how much that customer is spending, continues to increase. And it's also just creating more loyalty so that customer isn't going to another retail store down the street. So this is just an easy example and a methodology that as a retailer, we really want to study methodologies from traditional retail industries. And so I wanted to use this as an example of one methodology we should be thinking about in cannabis.
Right. And who doesn't like to be a VIP, right? And be treated like one. And, if you're spending that much money with a dispensary, you want that hand holding, you want that white glove service. It's the same way that they do it in traditional retailers, in clothing and other sectors as well. So love it. What other data should retailers be looking at?
Okay, so outside of really understanding your own store data, the other thing, and I'm just going to reiterate, is understanding what's happening at a market level. So understand what's happening in your state or your province as a whole, and then even understanding regionalized trends. So again, I live in the Bay Area. So what I see in San Francisco versus Oakland versus going down south to San Diego versus Los Angeles versus Coachella Valley, these are very different buying trends, right? And so as a whole, what we want to do is we want to understand what's happening in the market. So we want to understand basic things like, okay, in California, I'm going to stick with California as an example. We know about 40% of our sales are going to flower, combined loose flower with pre-rolls. We also see that vape sales are making up about a quarter of our sales. And we see that a large demographic group that likes to purchase vape cartridges is Gen Z and younger demographics. Well, we can use all of this market data and we can then reflect that in what products we purchase. So you're making sure that you're having the right product assortment at your store. And then when we get into the regionalized nuances, this is where you start to see, especially in a market like California that is just so vast, and you start to see different product producers that are producing more regionalized products. I see this a lot in San Diego, for example. There's a lot of pride to having product that's grown in your backyard. You then want to understand, well, who are those brands? And so what we can do is we can use market data, which there's a bevy of free resources for you guys. Like truly, there is a lot of free data out there. At Headset, we regularly publish industry reports that are looking at different customer trends, that are looking at the markets as a whole in terms of a product assortment. ArcView regularly does webinars in which they're talking about the same thing, and they're having speakers come on from varied industries and sharing their perspective. New Frontier Data has a bunch of great resources for webinars and reports as well. So my point is that there's a bevy of market data out there for you to understand what's happening in your state as a whole. And then you should really be using that data to influence your product assortment, so your inventory strategy. And again, like this stuff is changing in real time because we all know the supply chain in this industry, it's different by each market. There's different challenges with the supply chain within each market. So sometimes we'll see particular product shortages, which isn't necessarily a reflection of consumer trends. It could just be a symptom of the supply chain and that product being available. And so this is why we want to have a really well-rounded perspective of what's happening in the market by using different data sets to kind of piece together a story and understand how much of this is shifting consumer preferences, how much of this is product being available within the supply chain, how much of this is just what's happening in my direct store and what's happening in my community, and really using all of these different insights and data sets to help you with the marketing campaigns and with your inventory management.
Yeah, there's so much data available, and it's really your job as a retailer to digest that and make some decisions on what products am I missing, as you suggested, what demographics need to that we really need to focus on to ensure that we have products to address all our audiences and really take care of those loyal customers, right? It's the 20% that are bringing in a large percent of your revenue, and give them the best customer experience.
Exactly. And if I could just, I know we're a little bit over time, but this is such an important piece that I'm finding that a lot of retailers are unaware of. So at Headset, we did this analysis and we were looking at what percentage of the inventory that you have in your store has been stale, meaning it's had zero sales over a 90-day period. And what we found in California was that at the average retailer, and we did this analysis just a couple of weeks ago, at the average retailer, 18% of their SKUs had zero sales over a 90-day period. And then the other piece of this is when you touched on the 80-20 rule and you said, generally 20% of your sales are going to be, or 80% of your sales are coming from 20% of your products. This is another methodology that we want to think about, or a principle, I should say, in cannabis. And this principle, the 80-20 rule, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this. This is something we talk a lot about at Headset. This is something a lot of traditional retail and CPG industries talk about. But the 80-20 rule, this came from an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. And he had this idea that in Italy, that 80% of the wealth in Italy was owned by 20% of people. And so he had studied this. He's an economist, a philosopher, sociologist. He studied this, and then many other, economists picked up this principle and started studying this. And what we found is that just in general, and this is just a life rule, this comes down to this theory of it is true. If you think about just in your daily life, 20% of your actions are going to make up 80% of a result. Generally, 20% of your salespeople at your store are going to make up 80% of your revenue. In general, 20% of the products that you carry are going to make up 80% of your revenue. So when we know that this principle is generally true for us as a society, that's where we can take that and we can start thinking about it as it pertains to our inventory. And a lot of times what I see is that retailers aren't aware of the inventory that isn't moving off of their shelves, and they aren't aware that, wow, okay, this 20% of my product SKUs are really going to be driving my business here. I should probably stop spending so much time managing so many different SKUs. I mean, this is a very challenging job for an inventory manager. In cannabis retail, it's like in another analysis that we did was in Washington, the amount of SKUs on a shelf in Washington is comparative to the amount of SKUs that a Trader Joe's has in a year. This is an incredible amount of SKUs to manage. So everything that we're talking about here is really about being efficient with your time and your dollars by understanding what products are moving and what ones aren't. And when we apply these principles that have been existing in other industries, like the Pareto principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, like RFM segmentation, these are theories that we want to start becoming very comfortable with and really using these mindsets as we're thinking about our advertising campaigns, our inventory strategy. I know that's a lot, and I'm happy to put some links in the chat box. I just think these are very fascinating resources to be familiar with if you're in a marketing role.
I agree 100%. And this is all incredible customer data that you can use, to compare your in-store data to your target market data, and it's also crucial for high return marketing campaigns. And we've talked a lot about nurturing customers during this webinar, but we also need to capture new customers. So with any of your advertising, you have to ask yourself these questions all the time before, during, and after launching a new campaign. Are we reaching the audience we want? If not, who are we reaching? Is the intended audience responding the way we want? And is there a similar audience that we can use the target audience to find? And let's talk about the top marketing strategies for tapping into a new audience. First up, you want to set up brand awareness campaigns via Google Ads or display ads, aka programmatic advertising. So target your messaging and graphics to reflect the opinions, the likes, the values, behaviors, attitudes, and activities of the new target market based on your data. And yes, you have your research cut out for you, but it gets easier over time as you keep your finger on the pulse of the industry and your target market in particular. And your ad copy, imagery, and the deal should all be in line with the research that you've made for optimal results. And once you've launched your ads and started receiving information regarding, what's working, what's not, you can fine tune them and run A/B tests to increase their effectiveness. So switch up your ad copy, imagery, and deals to determine which combination works best for your target audience, and continue to measure, how well your ads are performing until you have the winner. So finally, you want to build up your audience pool and start remarketing campaigns. So these campaigns are extremely valuable because you're reaching people who are already interested in your products. And remarketing campaigns is aimed at reaching people who already have interacted with your brand. So it's more likely that they'll convert and make a purchase. And what this means for you is, you'll have a higher return on ad spend for these ads. So make sure, to run these if you can. You can, like I said, you can leverage both Google ads and the MediaGel programmatic ads to run remarketing campaigns to people who have visited your website in the past. So there's a lot to do to capture new customers. You just want to make sure that you're right in front of them when they're looking for product. All right, and you talked a little bit about the headset industry reports. How often do you share these with the public, Jocelyn?
So we're doing a broad industry report, which our analytics team will explore a particular facet of the industry. We produce those on a quarterly basis. So we've got one coming out on the vape market. The vape market sales have been rebounding there since the vape crisis, last summer, or a year and a half ago at this point. So that will be our next one up, but we're regularly producing tidbits that we call them. So it's just quick snapshots of some interesting fact in the industry. Like we just did some analysis on what happened with sales over 4th of July weekend and how are people, what products was sold really well during that weekend. A lot of this is about demand planning. So when we have seasonality trends in the industry, we then want to stack our shelves accordingly to those trends. And because this is so new for us as an industry, and because it's really hard to base any decisions on kind of what happened last year, because it was there were so many different things that happened last year that the data is not really reflective of what a normal year would look like. So for example, like we had fires that affected a lot of cultivators. So we saw some product shortages in some markets. We had riots in a lot of West Coast markets where product was, removed from the shelves. We saw that then, gets reflected in all the data that we're seeing at Headset. Because we're analyzing all that point of sale data in real time at Headset, and then we're reporting on these trends in real time. So when we see things like, the riots and product being stolen from shelves, we can't really base numbers off of that. When we have the fires and we see, cultivation numbers affected, we can't base numbers off that. The pandemic, we saw changes or trends shift throughout the pandemic. So it's really hard to make decisions when we've had a really unstable year in cannabis. But I say all this because we're regularly sharing what we're learning. So if you go to our website, there's a resources tab, there's market data in there, there's tidbits, which are very quick snapshots of what's happening in the market. And then we've got a bunch of industry reports that will go into things like that RFM segmentation model I went over. We go into detail on that and really give some visualizations of how you can use data to pull these insights. So a lot of interesting things on there.
Wonderful. And I know that we do have some special deals for everyone that attended the webinar today. If you want to kick it off first, Jocelyn.
Yeah, I mean, we'll happily give 20% off our retailer premium software. We didn't really get to go into it here. I kind of wanted to keep this broad. I wasn't sure who the attendees would be here, but happy to, you can email, you just go on our website and you can request a demo and you can mention this webinar and our team will give you 20% off. But these tools are really meant for marketers as well as inventory managers. So if you want to learn more about kind of these analytics and kind of what's possible within a platform, then hit our team up and we're happy to go through this with you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And we'd like to also extend an offer to anyone who attended the webinar. We're offering a free website with a 6-month marketing plan. So if you just reach out to us at foottraffic.me/contact, mention this webinar, and we'll be gladly to offer you the free website. And I know we're a little short on time, but we'd like to kind of allow for any questions. If you don't, if you'd like to ask a question, just click on the Q&A function there at the bottom of your Zoom, and we'll be happy to answer that. If there's anything you'd like to add, Jocelyn, feel free while we wait for some questions here.
No, my hope from this is that, I know this is pretty broad. There's just so much to cover here. And so I don't know, I guess my hope for everyone is that if you're interested in really understanding your analytics at a deeper level, the technology and the data is here for you. And, just kind of spend some time really educating yourself on what's possible, because a lot of the retailers that I see that are taking advantage of this, like, it truly is saving them time and money. But there's definitely an output in making sure that you have a dedicated staff member internally to really be using this every day. The data is only good if you can read it, if you make sense of it, if you can apply it. And quite frankly, because there's so much that a retailer has to deal with in their day, a lot of times I'm just seeing that the energy isn't necessarily being put to learn this, new thing for us all. But I see that the retailers that do, it's making a difference in their business. And so I just hope that I can, inspire people to make the time, really. I see a question from Morris. Are there any free resources from Foot Traffic or Headset with typical target personas for various Canna products? Yes. Yeah. From Headset's end, the way that we think about this, this is what our retailer premium software does. It identifies your customers. So who are the people coming into your store? So it's taking in all of that customer data if you're using a CRM solution, and it's bucketing that so you can see different reports. It'll say, hey, this group of customers, these are your people, 25 to 35. We're seeing that they come in this number of times. These are the products they like to purchase. And it gives you the exact product SKUs. So you can really see for your own store kind of what's happening. If the question is more around just general market trends, I'm going to pop a link in here of an analysis that we did fairly recently on different demographic group trends. It's data that's going to be from a wide variety of states. So it's not going to be regionalized data. I don't know where you're based, Morris. But it will at least give you some general idea of how trends are shifting within demographic groups. And then you can kind of use that information to, reflect that in your marketing.
Yeah, Morris, we don't have any public data on our side, but we do have a lot of information on the different markets, kind of on an anonymized level. So if you want to just reach out to us on, foottraffic.co/contact, we'll more than happy to kind of share some of our key findings with you and talk a little bit more about your goals. So, well, that's pretty much it for today. Jocelyn, thank you for joining us. Appreciate all the insights that you provided and value for our attendees. And be sure to check us out and follow Headset at headset.io. And I believe you're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, pretty much everywhere. So feel free to post those links, Jocelyn, in the Zoom chat, and for all the attendees, be sure to follow us.
Yeah, reach out if we can help with anything. Love talking about these trends and data. So yeah, awesome. This is fun. Thanks, Guillermo. Courtney, this is awesome. Thank you for all your support. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, team.